Hey, I'm Anthony Hazelwood.
Hi, I'm Alexander the Blake.
And this is Indie Warriors. What we do here at Indie Warriors is we look at independent games and look to see if they have potential going forward.
In other words, we decide in our opinion if these games are good or not.
So in that vein, I decided to review a game that I picked up on Steam a couple years ago on one of their flash sales.
Which is hilarious because you can't pick up on anything.
Oh yeah? Well, I picked up on your mom just fine last night.
You mean our mom?
We're getting off topic. I picked this game up because of a game I bought several years ago on my smartphone called Game Dev Story. It was developed by Karyosoft, which makes pretty fun simulations of different things such as racing, RPG, soccer, hot springs, and even shopping malls. That's an interesting game. I gotta admit, they seem to have cornered the market on these very addicting games. Game Dev Story, though, was their first game, and it set the standard for all of their games afterward. In the game, you took the role of an owner of a startup gaming development company in which you hire and fire staff, making money until you eventually become a bigger game development company, moving into bigger offices depending on the amount of money that your staff makes you. Eventually, you're able to make your own console to put on the market. Game Dev Story is an extremely addicting game. I found a lot of enjoyment out of it when I played it all those years ago. Enough so that I am recommending that you download this right now if you have not played it on your smartphone. And you know what? That goes for all Karyosoft games, not just Game Dev Story.
That's all nice and well, but can we talk about the game we're supposed to review?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess talking about that game was a good way of introducing this game.
Game Dev Tycoon, which seems to have heavy influence from Game Dev Story, was developed by Greenheart Games, a company founded by two brothers named Patrick and Daniel Klug.
Hey, we're brothers!
No, we're not. Remember? I'm adopted.
Right, because I totally hit on your adopted mom.
This isn't a comparison video. We really want to examine Game Dev Tycoon as if it were a separate entity. Though, at the beginning, I will say that a lot of the gameplay elements are borrowed from Story, which at face value diminishes the originality of the game.
While Blake is right about that, I can say what the game lacked in originality, it made up for an innovation, expanding on the core mechanics of Story. They are, in fact, two stylistically individual games.
This is where the comparison ends. So let's dive into Game Dev Tycoon. First stop, what is this game about?
At the beginning of the game, you take on the persona of a game developer working out of his mom's garage. That's right, you name him and your company. For us, we had an up-and-coming game developer named Jeff, and his company, Indie Warriors.
That bastard! He stole our name! At the beginning of the game, there are two sides of game development of which determine how good the game can be: technology and design. Your character, as he is by himself at this point, must determine in what portion of the game to develop more depending on the topic, genre, and game system, or as the game calls it, platform. Certain topics go good with certain genres, and certain genres go better with certain platforms. Once you have found which ones you think goes good with one another, you make a game. At which point you must decide based on the topic and genre what would be more important to the development of the game. There are 9 things that you must take into account.
These 9 things are engine, gameplay, storyline, /quest, dialogue, level design, AI, world design, graphics, and sound. Once you have completed the game, you wait for the game to be rated, and hopefully you get a game as good as Ninja Sex Party 5, and hope that you recoup all your money that you put into the game.
Or just go flat broke.
Like we did, and had to take out a loan. You suck with money. Or,
What was that last part again?
oh, I said 4, as in, like, dollars?
After you complete a game, you get a chance to do a game report on the game that you just made. So you can get insight on what is more important when making games in specific genres, as well as what works well together in terms of the plethora of different topics in this game.
Speaking of these topics, when you start the game, you only have a select few in terms of what topics you can use. To unlock more, you must research new topics. Research doesn't end there, however. You will be doing a lot of research in this game. Want better graphics? Research it. Want voiceovers? We research it. Night and day cycles? We research it. Open worlds? We research it. You wanna make some games? We research it. You'll need some new cutscenes, we'll research it. Your graphics aren't the best, we research it. How about an orchestra, we'll research it.
Yeah, we'll research it.
The bigger question, however, is how you research it.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Johnny.
My name's not Johnny.
What you do to get research points is you either make games or take on contract work. Doing so will give you dots!
And now, a song about dots.
Dots, so many dots. I'm surrounded by dots. What would polka be without dots? Yeah, dots.
The dark blue dots represent the research points you get, which allow you to research the various things in the game that we mentioned earlier.
Tony, you're missing something.
What am I missing, Blake?
Other dots.
And now a song about other dots.
Other dots, so many other dots. I'm surrounded by other dots. They're not dipping, they're other dots. Yeah, other dots.
Dots.
Oh yeah, that's right, other dots. So the two other dots you see also represent other factors in the game, orange being for design and the lighter blue being for technology. As you progress through the game and begin to research more things, you can use what you've researched to develop game engines. These are integral to keeping up with the technology of the time. We'll get more into this once we get into the story section of this review. And yes, believe it or not, there is a story section.
I have a story for you. It was a long time ago. The end.
As you progress in the game, you'll be able to hire a team of up to 4 other game developers.
And they can do things, and you can make their dreams come true. The end.
Once you have your team, you train them. The better they're trained, the more design, technology, and research dots you can earn. Also, by training them a specific way, you can make them specialize in one of the 9 areas of game development that I mentioned earlier.
Once you've done enough game reports and unlocked insight on specific topics and genres, you can begin to assign them to the 9 areas of game development so that it can be better developed, and it takes a lot of trial and error.
So, how do you determine what areas the workers are better designed for?
Magic.
No, bro, each worker has various stats, including Jeff. A character could have more points in design or technology. Depending on where their stats are, will determine where you assign them in the 9 game elements. You need to be conscious of the stats because sometimes design could be better for this, and other times technology could be better for that. You could need both stats even.
Oh, I learned about elements in school, like neon and boron and dysprosium and the magical fairy dust.
Blake, we've been over this. Fairy dust? Not a real...
No, it is.
Let's go ahead and talk about some other aspects that encompass this game. I'll let Blake talk about them first.
Speed, heroin, drugs.
Yeah, never mind. I'll talk about them. So another aspect of this game is marketing. In marketing, you pay money to raise the hype of your game, and depending on the rating of the game on its release, will cause your game to sell more. And now, Blake is going to explain the other things that can raise hype.
Jet, psycho, chems, coaches.
Never mind. Once you move out of your garage and into a new building, you are invited to the equivalent of E3. Depending on how much money you spend on this convention, your hype will increase accordingly. The last area I really want to talk about is the R&D and hardware labs, which are unlocked by having a design and technology specialist, among other smaller requirements. The R&D lab is about research and development, which gives you special research options that you are unable to do with your regular employees. You invest money in the R&D lab, up to $3 million a month, which pushes research forward every couple of seconds, netting you dots! Yes, that.
The hardware lab runs the same way, $3 million max, like he was saying. So running both can be very expensive. To even get the hardware lab, you need to do the hardware research in the R&D lab. Once you get it, you can finally do what any game developer dreams of. Namely, creating your own console by collecting dots!
So that was the majority of the gameplay, which is complicated and really hard to grasp. I encourage you to play the game yourself. I'm sure you're wondering though, hey, you mentioned a story. I bet that'll be complicated too. Well, you would be wrong. In fact, I believe my brother is smart enough to be able to tell you.
So you were transported into the past to do speed, heroin, drugs with a magical lonely unicorn named Ralph. The end.
Guess not. I guess I'll tell you. This game takes place when video games were first being conceived, and you are literally following the history of video games. You even get a slight bit into the future of where the creator thinks the video games will go. They even do an artful job of renaming the systems by giving them these names. Yeah. The game does have an ending where it tallies the score depending on how far you made it within the set years of the game. That's it. That's Game Dev Tycoon.
This is the last section of the video that me and Blake have affectionately called The Verdict. This part we both give our own unbiased opinion on the game itself. I don't know what Blake's gonna say, and Blake doesn't know what I'm gonna say. The rating system is in between Indie Giant and Indie Baby.
Since my brother did most of the talking for this, I'm gonna go ahead and give my verdict on this game first. My verdict for this is indie middle-aged man. Nothing wrong with a middle-aged man. In fact, quite a lot have made great strides in technology and various other fields, and some still look very young. I'm just saying that this is more like a middle-aged man going through a midlife crisis. But not the bad kind. The good kind that you get to hang around with and have a good time, at least for a little while, before things get really awkward, and then you'd be like, yeah, I gotta go home. Have a good one. And you walk off, kind of like this.
I have a hard time separating this from the Kairosoft Game Dev Story. They're very similar. In fact, you can tell that the creators of this game actually were trying to make that game, but adding stuff onto it to give it a little bit more depth. And unfortunately, I don't think that it really added more depth. I just felt like what happened in the process is that they lost what the original Kairosoft game was about. See, and I know we said this wouldn't be a comparison, and that's what bugs me about it. I don't want to compare it, but I'm forced to compare it because they are essentially the same game with minor differences. So for that, my verdict is that this game is an indie brother trying to be like its older brother. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Anthony Hazelwood. Brother.